In 850 BC, the Lord said he would take up his prophet Elijah into heaven by a whirlwind. Elisha traveled with him from Gilgal, and Elijah told him to wait while he went to Bethel. But Elisha said, "As the Lord liveth, I will not leave thee." And they went together. The sons of the prophets asked Elisha if he knew the Lord would take his master Elijah today. And he said yes, and told them to hold their peace. The Lord then sent Elijah to Jericho, and when he asked Elisha to wait for him, he again went with him. The sons of the prophets in Jericho asked Elisha again if he knew the Lord would take Elijah that day, and he said that he did. Elijah then told Elisha to wait while he went to the Jordan River, but Elisha did not leave him. 50 men of the sons of the prophets stood afar off and watched Elijah wrap his mantle or coat together and smite the waters. They divided, and Elijah and Elisha went over on dry ground. Elijah asked, "What shall I do for thee before I be taken away?" And Elisha said, "I pray thee, let a double portion of thy spirit be upon me," perhaps believing he needed twice as much of the Lord's blessing to be as good as his master. Elijah said that he asked for a hard thing. "Nevertheless, if thou see me when I am taken from thee, it shall be so." As they walked together, a chariot and horses of fire appeared between them, and Elisha saw Elijah carried up by a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha cried, "My father, the chariot of Israel and the horsemen thereof," and he did not see Elijah any more. Elisha tore his clothes into 2 pieces, and took up Elijah's mantle that had fallen from him. Elisha stood by the bank of the river Jordan, and said, "Where is the God of Elijah?" He then smote the waters, and they parted. The sons of the prophets bowed themselves to the ground, and said, "The spirit of Elijah doth rest on Elisha." They asked that 50 strong men go and seek his master, lest the Spirit of the Lord hath taken him up and cast him upon some mountain or in some valley. Elisha told them not to go, but they kept urging him until he relented. They searched for 3 days, but did not find him. They returned, and Elisha said they should not have gone. They told him the ground in the city was barren, and there was no water. Elisha told them to bring a new cruse and put salt into it. He cast the salt in a spring and said, "Thus saith the Lord, I have healed these waters," and there would no longer be any death or barren land. When he went up to Bethel, some youths came from the city and mocked him, saying, "Go up, thou bald head." This may have referred to Elisha not having as much hair as Elijah, and they did not respect his authority as a prophet. Elisha cursed them in the name of the Lord, and 2 she-bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of them. Ahab's son Jehoram reigned over Israel, and Jehoshaphat was king over Judah. The king of Moab rebelled, and Jehoram asked Jehoshaphat if he would go to battle with him. Jehoshaphat agreed and asked if there was a prophet who could help them know the Lord's will. A servant said, "Here is Elisha, who poured water on the hands of Elijah." They went with the king of Edom to Elisha, who said he would see them for Jehoshaphat's sake, who had standing before the Lord. A minstrel then played music, and the hand of the Lord came upon them. Elisha said, "Thus saith the Lord, make this valley full of ditches." They did not see any wind or rain, but the valley was filled with water for them to drink, along with their animals. He said it would be a light thing in the sight of the Lord to deliver the Moabites into his hand. When the Moabites rose early in the morning, the sun shone upon the river, and they saw it was as red as blood. They thought the kings had smitten each other, and went to the camp of Israel to go through their spoils, when the Israelites rose up and smote them. The Israelites beat down the cities, cast stones in every good piece of land, stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. The Moab king took 700 men armed with swords to fight the king of Edom, but was defeated. He then offered his eldest son, who should have reigned in his stead, as a burnt offering upon the wall, and then returned to his own land. A wife of the sons of the prophets told Elisha that her husband, who feared the Lord, was dead, and a creditor was coming to take her 2 sons as slaves. Elisha asked what he should do for her, and what she had in the house. She said there was only 1 pot of oil, and he told her to borrow many empty vessels from her neighbors, pour the oil into them, and set aside those which were full. She did as he asked, filling all of them, and they did not run out. Elisha then told her to go sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children off the rest. A great woman in Shunem gave Elisha bread to eat whenever he passed by. She told her husband that this was a holy man of God, and they made a little chamber for him with a bed, table, stool, and candlestick. Elisha told his servant Gehazi to tell her that she had cared for him, and to ask what could be done for her. Gehazi said that she had no child, and her husband was old. Elisha told her, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. She told Elisha not to lie to her, but then did have a child, as was promised. The boy grew older, and one day he went to his father, saying his head hurt. He was carried to his mother, and sat on her knees until noon. Then he died. She had a young man saddle a donkey, and they drove quickly to the man of God in Mount Carmel. When Elisha saw the woman, he told Gehazi to run and ask her, is it well with thee, thy husband, or with the child? She replied, it is well, and caught Elisha by his feet, saying, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. Gehazi came to move her away, but Elisha said to leave her alone. He told Gehazi to gird up his loins, and quickly go and lay his staff upon the child's face, but he did not wake up. Elisha came into the house and found the child dead. He prayed to the Lord, then stretched himself and put his mouth, eyes, and hands on the child, who then became warm. He walked to and fro and stretched himself on the child again. The boy then sneezed 7 times and opened his eyes. Elisha told Gehazi to call the woman and take up thy son. She fell and bowed down to the ground at Elisha's feet, and then took her child. Elisha went to Gilgal, where there was a dearth in the land. He told his servants to put on a large pot, and make pottage for the sons of the prophets. A man went to gather herbs, and found a wild vine with gourds. He put them in the pot, not knowing they were poisonous, and when the men ate it, they cried, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot. Elisha told him to bring meal, and he cast it into the pot, making it safe for them to eat. In another miracle, a man brought 20 loaves of barley and full ears of corn for the people to eat. But Elisha's servant asked, should I set this before 100 men? Elisha told him to give it to the people so they could eat. The Lord had promised they would have plenty, and when it was set before them, they ate and had food left over according to his word. Naaman was captain of the host of the king of Syria, and an honorable and great man. But he was also a leper. A little maid who had been brought captive from Israel served his wife, and told her about the prophet in Samaria who could cure him of his leprosy. Naaman's wife told him what she said. And the king of Syria sent a letter with Naaman to the king of Israel, asking him to cure his leprosy along with 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. The king read it and tore his clothes, asking, Am I God to kill and make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of leprosy? Elisha heard this, and told the king to let the man come to him, and he would know there was a prophet in Israel. Naaman came with his chariot and stood at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to tell him to wash 7 times in the Jordan River, and he would be cured of his leprosy. Naaman was angry, and left, thinking the prophet should have come out to him, called on the Lord's name, and put his hand over the leprosy to cure it. He asked if the rivers of Damascus were better than the waters of Israel, and if he should not wash and be cleansed in them. He left in a rage, and his servants asked if he would have done great things if the prophet had asked him. Naaman then followed the prophet's instructions, dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan River, and his flesh became clean like a little child. Naaman returned and told Elisha, Behold, now I know that there is no God on all the earth but in Israel. He offered his treasure to Elisha for being healed, but the prophet refused and told him to go in peace. Gehazi saw the treasure and ran after Naaman. He told him that Elisha had said he should give something to 2 young men of the sons of the prophets, and Naaman gave him 2 talents of silver and 2 changes of garments. Gehazi hid Naaman's gifts in his house and went to Elisha. The prophet asked him where he'd been, and Gehazi said he had not gone anywhere. Elisha knew Gehazi's heart and said that because of what he had done, Naaman's leprosy would now be upon him and his seed forever. The sons of the prophets asked Elisha if they could cut down trees to make a better place for them to live. He told them to go ahead, and while they were cutting down trees, an axe head fell into the water. The man who lost it said, "Alas, master, for it was borrowed." Elisha asked where it had fallen, then cut down a stick and cast it into the water, and the iron axe head floated to the top of the water. He then told the man to put out his hand, and he picked it up. The Syrians fought against Israel, and Elisha saved the king of Israel twice by warning him. The Syrian king's heart was sore troubled because of this, and he asked who of his own people betrayed him. His servants said there was a prophet in Israel who knew all of the king's words, even when he spoke them in his own bedchamber. The king said to find this prophet and learned he was in Dothan. He then sent horses and chariots to surround the city. Elisha's servant rose early the next morning, and when he saw the army, he said, "Alas, my master, how shall we do?" Elisha told him to fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with them. He prayed the Lord would open his servant's eyes, and he then saw that the mountain was full of horses and chariots of fire round about them. Elisha asked the Lord to smite the soldiers with blindness, and told them to follow him. He said he would bring them to the man they were searching for, but he took them instead to Samaria. The Lord opened their eyes, and they saw that they were in the land of their enemies. The king of Israel asked if he should smite them, but Elisha told them instead to put bread and water before them so they could eat. They then left the land of Israel and never returned. Before Elijah was translated, he asked Elisha what he wanted, and this humble new prophet asked for a double portion of the Spirit. The Lord granted his faithful servant this request, and Elisha was able to perform about twice as many miracles as Elijah had done in his life. And this is 2 Kings chapters 2 through 7 in the Old Testament. Look for hidden images located throughout the video. You can download a coloring page and activity puzzles for each section on Etsy at Ponderfun. Visit our Ponderfun.com website and Facebook page to find more fun things to do. And you can listen to these as a podcast. Please like and share these videos with anyone you think might enjoy them. Also, please subscribe to this Ponderfun YouTube channel, and you'll be notified whenever I make new videos. Thanks again for watching, and find some time this week to ponder.